Hi friends, welcome to episode 12 of our science fiction book read-along. Today we will be reading chapter 30 of The Terraformers by Annalee Newitz. We're skipping ahead about 4 chapters each time, so next time we'll be reading from chapter 34. So we're going to read about the first 5 pages. It's a little bit longer than that. I think this chapter is about 9 pages long. As always, leave your thoughts and impressions in the comments, and look forward to hearing your discussion points. All right, with no further ado, chapter 30, Worms. It starts out with a memo from Ronnie Drake to Misha. Subject, Emerald Land Report. Date, May 12th, 59,706. Origin, Verdance Corporation. Least cost path, VD Hab Cartier, 0.001, Turtle Wormhole 3.2, Tisdale Station 0.9, Sasky Sat 0.05. While you're in northern Masqua, I'm going to need some 360 network data. Emerald is sniffing around at the eastern tip of the continent and wants to be sure the land is virgin. End memo. Do you think Cylindra made those cows? It had been 3 days since they headed north out of Left Hand, and Zest was finally ready to analyze what they'd seen at the dairy ranch. I was wondering that too. The sea wind whipped Misha's hair into stiff, salty ringlets. Maybe it was her solution to the problem she had with the templates for Archaeans. There's no worry about rebellions if you dial everybody's in-ass ratings way down. He looked over at Sulfur. What do you think? Sulfur thought about it. We saw a lot of different kinds of people in the Emerald Cities. Why would she single out cows? My guess, cows are part of the city's brand, the perfect symbol of Homo sapiens' domestication of nature. Zest paused and took an air sample while Sulfur pinched up some sandy soil. They had silently agreed to prevent Misha from touching anything unless they needed a more complicated reading of the ecosystem network. He watched them, a thoughtful expression on his face. I can imagine Cylindra coming up with a shit-speckled template like that. She does have final sign-off on the urban ecosystem. And Sasky is supposed to be exclusively for recreating Pleistocene Earth, right? Nobody was part of the Great Bargain before the farm revolutions. The team was hiking on the ragged, weedy cliffs that made up the Comfort Sea's northern coastline, which stretched for another 1,000 kilometers before curving to form Masqua's eastern edge. The next city, Cocowadoko, was a day's walk from here. Sulfur stared out over the gray water, foam on distant waves mirroring the color of the clouds overhead. I could see that, they said. That whole city was a giant turd wrapped up like candy. Rocket zipped up the cliff wall from the beach below just in time to overhear their last exchange. We talked to a lot of workers whose in-ass ratings put them in the blessed category. Their limiters prevent them from talking about anything but their jobs. Worse than being a mount. Right, Misha nodded. Verdance forces us to build blessed in L'Orange, too. Zest's face was drawn. I didn't meet anyone else like those cows, though. Left Hand was full of birds and rodents who couldn't speak. The cow flicked an ear. Well, sure, there are a lot of animals on Sasky. We build them all the time at L'Orange. But that's different. They're part of the wild-type ecosystems. The 4 people crunched along the cliff's edge for a while, watching the afternoon sun sink as the moon rose. Supposedly, this moon was roughly the same mass as Earth's, but it was pear-shaped and stained a deep yellow-red from recent volcanism. Nobody would confuse it with the original Luna. The whole in-ass system is toxic. Rocket picked up a pebble and chucked it down at the breaking waves. It's the main reason I left L'Orange. In Spider City, there's no intelligence hierarchy. You're either a person or you're not. And even if you're not, you still have a lot of rights. Well, sometimes. People cut down trees when technically they're not supposed to, Sulfur admitted. And that new hydro plant displaced a capybara community. Rocket emitted a few squeaks of capybara song, a series of pleasant squeaks and chitters. We did find them a new stretch of river, and they seem happy. But you can't know for sure if they're happy because they don't talk. Zest had an edge to her voice. We can observe them and see that they have enough food and are healthy. We can check to be sure they're predators that are at appropriate levels. Misha put out a hand to pat Zest's neck, and she stepped slightly to the side, avoiding his touch. It's a rotted system, all right. Sulfur picked up another sample and read the sensors. At some point during the farm revolution, a bunch of Homo sapiens decided which life forms would get to be part of the Great Bargain and become people. Bots were involved too, Rocket added grimly. We were the ones who figured out how to build human-equivalent minds for non-human animals. Misha let out a laugh, and they all looked at him. Sorry, that's not funny. I was thinking about how Verdance has all those ads about how Sasky is this return to old Earth with the pure Homo sapiens and perfect Pleistocene ecosystems. And yet nobody wants to be an actual Homo sapiens with an unmodified body. Imagine going around with a brain from, 50,000 years ago, 60,000, right before the farm revolution. Your NS ratings would put you slightly above Mount. You'd be Cylindria's perfect Emerald City worker, Zest snorted. Sulfur glanced at their readings from the last pinch they'd taken and stopped walking. Hey, Misha, I need you to take a look at this. What is it? These readings are weird. Either all the sensors are damaged or somebody wiped all the data before a year ago. Misha hunkered down and placed palms on the ground, fingers spread, going quiet as he checked the network. Oh yeah, this is definitely weird. He spent about a minute deep in the sensor network, his face going pale and sweaty with the effort. Zest, do you have your ground penetrating radar? I can do it. Rocket pulled a rolled-up silver sheet from their pack and spread it on the ground. With a gesture, they opened a window on its surface that showed shadowy structures below them. Oh, shit, would you look at that? Rocket tugged the sheet, moving it to a stretch of ground a few meters away. And here's some more. What is it? Looks like a pretty big naked mole rat colony, if you ask me. Zest was doing her own readings now, using an array that fanned out from the actuator in her side compartment. They've got some nice lab equipment down there, too. I would say they're definitely messing with the sensors. They're trying to hide this place. Sulfur cocked their head. That's intriguing. Let's say hello. I'll try. Misha put his hands to the ground again. I poked the security system and told them who we are. Presently, a naked mole rat popped her head out of the portal in the ground, a meter away, nose switching. She sent, "We just got a message saying some of you are from Spider City ERT. Is that true?" "We are," Rocket and Sulfur chorused. "I'm Dash. My mother came from Spider and taught us how to hide from Verdance, like our ancestors did." "I knew your mother," Rocket said. "She fought in the Eel River War with us." Dash chittered excitedly. "Can you help us, friend? We need a bioengineer right now. Somebody who knows about building intelligence." She angled her head down, sniffing something in the tunnel below her. "It's urgent." Zest lowered her head to look at the smaller mammal. "I'm a ranger and I work in a bioengineering lab. What do you need?" The wrinkled, hairless creature stood with arms akimbo. "Let me get Loam. She's the team lead." Dash ducked back through the portal and returned a few minutes later with Loam, who was wearing a red shawl tucked around her shoulders. "It gets so cold up here sometimes," Loam sent by way of greeting. "I'm afraid we run into a problem with the earthworms." She unrolled a small mobile device that had been tucked away under her shawl and set it to project at eye level for the hominids. A 3D rendering of an earthworm's double brain jumped into view, looking like two small pears attached to the end of a tuning fork. "We've been working with the earthworms so much that we thought it would be easier if they were people. I know that's unorthodox." "You're bringing earthworms into the Great Bargain?" Zest had a strange note in her voice. Loam didn't notice Zest's reaction. "The problem is we're working with some Verdance templates we got from a friend of a friend, and they're not really set up for something like this." "Sounds familiar," Sulfur snickered. "Anyway, I built a fair number of people, never had any trouble getting the brain sender interface to grow. But look at that." She highlighted a region of the worm's brain. "Seems fine, right? They should be a person, but they're not sending. We can't even tell if they understand us." Zest made a harumph noise. "Those templates are garbage. They assume this hierarchy of intelligence measured in language, but that's not how it works. Listen. There are two kinds of brains, right? Unmodified intelligence and human equivalent intelligence. Once you have a human equivalent brain, that's it. There are no natural levels of intelligence. But there are ways of artificially limiting people's vocabulary to create the illusion of mental hierarchy. A person with a blessed rating can only talk about the same one task they were designed for, like, say, tree planting. A mount can only speak in single-syllable words. Of course, a so-called person has full vocabulary access. So how do you create the in-ass ratings? At Verdance, the templates call for limiters. Basically, they break part of the software that controls the brain-sender interface. But other places do it differently. You can damage the tissues or create chemical shortcuts that circumvent speech. Dash and Loam stood very still. Finally, Loam sent, "Are you saying that anyone above animal level has full speech ability, even if you build them for blessed or mount levels?" Yep. Zest extended her actuator and poked the visualization, pulling up a command line. Can you read those lines of code? They're part of every Verdance template for brain designs, and if you had access to the Verdance libraries, it would call for whatever limiter you wanted. But right now, it has a call for a limiter that doesn't exist in your friend's system. That's probably what's keeping the earthworms from vocalizing. Their brains are checking for a limiter that isn't there, and it's going into a loop. Aha! Loam keened a note of triumph. Of course. That's why they've demonstrated such incredible insight when it comes to everything but language. They've solved the traveling herbivore problem. They always find the shortest route between hundreds of food sources. It's incredible. Dash dropped to all fours and sniffed at something on the ground. She seemed dejected. I never knew that about limiters. Does that mean our blessed and our mounts have things they would want to say but can't say, then? Yes. Yes, it does. Rocket played the angry sound of a tree crashing to the forest floor. It should be a rights violation, but hominins love it. Zest shook herself as if she was trying to throw off the entire weight of human interstellar civilization. The League's intelligence board is mostly hominins, and they're the ones who decide which species are invited into the Great Bargain. They control who counts as a person. She paused and spoke more quietly. What you're doing here with the worms is a major violation. We're doing it the spider way, like my mother taught us. Dash stood up again. Are you going to turn us in? Sulfur laughed. As long as you don't implement limiters, I'm pretty sure that nobody here saw anything. That's right. Zest pulled the actuator back into her crops and flicked an ear. Her mood had lightened. All I saw were some malfunctioning sensors. And I checked the sensor network, and it looks like everything is exactly how we expect it, Misha grinned. Just a freak reset, maybe from a lightning strike. Thanks, friends. Loam nodded to the group. I'll implement this right away. Why did you decide to build these particular worms as people? Sulfur asked. I've never heard of anyone just deciding to change a template like that. We were working with them on soil sustainability and infrastructure maintenance for the colony. It didn't seem right that we couldn't talk to them. Sulfur tried to imagine talking to a worm and found the idea soothing. I hope to meet one of your new people sometime soon. We'll be decanting a group tomorrow after we fix that limiter bug. You're welcome to stay. Plenty of nice camps around here for people of your size. Zest wanted to stay, but Misha and Sulfur were anxious about making it to Kokowadoko before dark. After conferring, the team decided to continue onward. They would need at least 2 weeks at Spider City, and there was a lot of urbanized land to cover before that. All right, folks, that was the end of our reading for tonight. The chapter continues on for a few more pages if you want to keep going. As always, leave your thoughts and comments and join us next time for chapter 34. All right, thanks.